Welcome to Shotgun Sports USA, recorded in the U.S. and streaming all over the world. I'm your host, Justin Barker, and I talk to shotgun shooters from all disciplines. Championship-winning coaches, gun clubs, world-class target setters, vendors, and industry-leading companies that fuel the sport. If you're into clay target sports, you are at the right place for insider information from some of the best in the world. Check us out online at shotgunsportsusa.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. Shotgun Sports USA is powered by Winchester Ammunition, the American legend. Also brought to you by Cole Gunsmithing, Ultimate Shooting Accessories, Rick Hemingway's Promatic Trap Sales, Sound Gear and Sound Gear Phantom, Comp and Choke, Clay Shooter Supply, and Clay Target Vision. This week, my guest finished runner-up at the 2022 U.S. Open at Backwoods Quail Club. He's going to walk us through his week and how he managed one of the hardest main event courses he has ever shot. Please welcome to the show, Anthony Matarese Jr. Ant, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I know you're back home now and from the U.S. Open, and we're going to talk about that and your new book release and go into some of the details of both. But so far this year, how's your shooting been?
I can't complain. You know, I've shot decent all year. I really have not had a full tournament where I feel like I really put it all together and reached my potential. But I've shot very consistent throughout the year, whether it's prelims, FITAS, main event. I can't complain. I will, but you know, you can always do better. You know, so that's just, you know, my I'm shooting well. Haven't reached my potential yet, but we can all say that sometimes, I think.
The U.S. Open was a highly talked about tournament, which is just held at Backwoods Quail Club. And first off, I think Rick and the team did a great job with the club and the tournament. Everything seemed to run smoothly. There's plenty of room. Vendor row was set up perfect. I don't think that they could have done anything any better than they did. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's awesome. I told Rick, I said, you know, at the end of the tournament, I said, you know, hats off to you. It was a great job. They did a really good job on everything. You know, all the details were there. The facility is the facility and the size of the place is enormous, you know, which gives them lots of options to do what they want. But awesome all around. We camped while we were there. Me and my family, we had a really good time. Did some fishing with the kids out there and all the little lakes and stuff they have. So we had a really good time, and definitely congratulations to them for hosting it. Yeah.
I think you and Rick are probably the top two when it comes to holding a tournament and doing it the right way. So, you know, coming from you, and I'm sure that means something to him that he did a good job with it. So the Super Squad was something that kind of caught my attention this year with the U.S. Open. How did you like that setup, and how did you like that rotation?
It was good. I mean, I think essentially Rick, you know, it was kind of Rick's idea that, hey, let's try to put some of the best guys together to give them as fair as conditions as possible, et cetera. It wasn't done formally, meaning like there wasn't a criteria that, you know, like this year at the 2022 National Championship, there's a strict criteria. This is how you make it. This is how you don't make it. These are your options. If you like to join, this is your option if you don't want to join. At the U.S. Open, it was kind of, I think, more done informally, meaning somebody from the club reached out to you and said, hey, we selected you to be on this rotation. Do you want to do it? It wasn't mandatory, and there were, you know, a handful of people that opted out of it.
So how are they doing it at Nationals, since you brought that up?
So there's a strict list of criteria, which is public. It's on the NSCA website. You know, essentially goes off of some All-American teams. It also goes into past placements at U.S. Opens, regionals, and national championships, past placements at world championships. So you have a strict criteria. You meet that criteria. If you don't, there's no gray area. If you think there was a really good shooter and he didn't make the criteria, then he didn't meet the criteria. Nobody's going to hand select them in, and, you know, or vice versa. You know, somebody that thought, well, I shouldn't be on this rotation, I just want to shoot. If you made the criteria, you're in, and you have to join that rotation if you want to be eligible for prizes. If you made the criteria, everyone else is eligible as eligible to win as long as they didn't make that cut. So essentially, it's kind of a little bit more black and white.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a good start with Rick did to just, got to start somewhere, and this year will be the first year at the Nationals that they have it done.
I noticed there were some shooters that, in my opinion, should have been in the Super Squad that wasn't. So I guess they just opted out for it. I didn't know that at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I think it was just less formal and it wasn't mandatory.
Yeah. Do you think it added any sort of pressure to the people that were in it, or do you think it helped them?
I would say it definitely added pressure to people. I would say personally to me, I definitely started off my first day a little bit nervous. I missed 2 in the first 2 stands that weren't hard birds on the first day, and then kind of got my feet under me. And then as I went through the next 2 days, it didn't hurt me at all.
Yeah.
At times it might have helped me when I was shooting well. And I would say the dynamic of some of the people on my squad, it might have, just by if I was reading them, it might have hurt them a little bit. One of my squad mates was Zach Kienbaum, and he said it definitely threw him off a little bit. He felt like, just doing things a little different than he normally would just by a different, just being in a different setting and a different scenario, and you're slightly less in control of what you normally do.
Well, last year you won the U.S. Open in Kansas. You come to Georgetown this year, Backwoods, and you tie the lead with a 177. I don't know the last time that I've seen a 177 win anything. And unfortunately, you lost in the shoot-off. So after a 3-day main event, I think some would say this is the hardest they've ever shot. Take us through your 3 days of the main.
Yes, it's definitely the hardest main event I've ever shot. I won the U.S. Open in 2008 with a 180, which was probably the lowest that I can remember. Any score being, and the targets back then, the shooters are a lot better now. That's 2008. I'm 14 years later. I'm a lot better shooter now than I was in 2008. And, that 180 back then would be a 188 today, I think. Mm-hmm. But, so definitely the hardest birds that I've ever seen in potentially, any U.S. Open or national championship. The first day we started on the DT11 course. It was a very challenging course. I would say there was what I would call one easy station, that everybody should, get 5 out of 6 or 6, maybe 2 or 3 stations that are intermediate, that, you could say if you're a master class shooter, you should run it, maybe 2 or 3 stands. Mm-hmm. So then you had about, call it 8 or 9 that are simply difficult. They're very challenging. Distance, speed, true pairs, all of the above. Not a lot of, edgy or can't see it or anything like that, but just 8 or 9 very challenging stations, stuff targets in the 40 to 70 yard range. For 8 or 9 stands. I shot very well throughout the course. I actually finished very poorly on my last station, and it wasn't nerves. It was just, there was a Rabu and a Batu true pair, and I was only down 8 birds going into my last stand, which I thought was very good. And the first pair, I missed the Rabu and hit the Batu, and kind of shocked that I missed the Rabu, but no surprises. Rabu, anybody can miss it. And I didn't really have a lot of concern on the Batu. Second pair, I hit the Rabu and missed the Batu, and I was kind of shocked that I missed it. Just felt like I took my eye off of it, getting a little bit, amped up on the first one, and then I did the same thing on the second pair. Dead loss, hit the Rabu, missed the Batu. And that bird wasn't missable, So I missed 3 birds that day that were definitely easy. But I shot a lot of hard stands really well. There's a lot of stands that guys on my group, Wendell Cherry, Zach Kienbaum, Trevor Jensen were killing 3 out of 6, and there was a lot of those stands I killed 5 out of 6. So I shot a lot of stands well, didn't come out with exactly the score I wanted to. Second day, we shot on the 694 course. I thought that course would have been like a typical U.S. Open challenging course, Mm-hmm. National championship, a challenging course. Not easy, not hard, just kind of good intermediate. Definitely some good true pairs on it that, if you didn't kill the first bird at the right spot, the second bird was a lot harder, or they made you shoot the first bird early. Um, you know, there was plenty of time to shoot them. It was just simply that if you didn't shoot the first one where you needed to, the second one was going to be much more difficult, or you would run out of time. I shot that course okay. I shot 61. Again, I gave up 2 birds there. I should not have missed. Hit some hard stuff. And then on my last day, I shot the
A400.
the A400. Thought it was an awesome course. I started off. I missed one on my second stand, missed one on my third stand, missed one on my fourth stand, ran a stand, and then missed 2 on a station that I probably should not have. I could have missed 1 there. And then the back half of the course, it would have been about 6 or 7 of my last 6 or 7 of my last stations. I only missed. I'm right in the middle of that stretch. I missed a bird, a single and a single. Killed a 5 out of 6 and a 5 out of 6. I shot that course really well. I thought I could have hit 2 more there potentially, but at the end of the day, I tied for the highest score. I was happy to do that. There's a lot of hard stands out there, and I shot a lot of them really well. That's where the score gets to where it is. If you go and look at the scores, there's great shooters that shot, in the 150s. So 70 some percent. I shot a 177. I could have shot better. I just missed a handful of birds I shouldn't have missed, but I killed a lot of birds that, had a lot of stations I killed 5 out of 6 on, or 6 out of 6. That if someone asked me, do you want to go back and shoot that station again today to try for a higher score? And I had a 5 out of 6 during the tournament, I wouldn't even cross my mind to try again. I wouldn't want to have to hit a 5 out of 6 again. So there's a lot of tough stands out there. I mean, big targets, far, fast, pairs, all the above. So it was a challenge for everyone. Am I disappointed that I didn't win? Yeah. Even in the shoot off, I tied the first time and then lost the second time by a bird. Would have been nice to win it twice in a row, but that's life. I definitely, out of all the tournaments over my career that I never really am upset when I lose, because I give 110% anytime. Anybody that knows me, I leave it all out there on the field. I never drive home thinking I, could have put in more effort, but I missed some birds in the main event that I should have never missed, considering how well I shot a lot of tough stands. But I feel like that happens on these courses because you're using so much energy and so much planning to put all your effort station after station. It's relentless. There's no let up. So you finally get to a stand and it's got a really nasty bird and a basic shot, and you take a tiny bit of breathing room on that easier bird, and it cost me. I wouldn't say that my effort, like visually or intensity was off when I missed those, but definitely my planning, was not as intense as it could have been, so who knows, I could think about forever why I missed them. I'm still thinking about 4 or 5 that I should have hit. And then in the shoot off, I made a bad decision actually I made a bad decision twice, but that's what makes you better, is knowing how you missed them, what your mistakes are. A lot of people struggled, really good shooters, guys shot 70%, 75%, but I think the birds were difficult. I think the other thing that people don't take in consideration is you shot 39 stations to do 200 birds. Normally you shoot 30 stations to do 200 birds on a 200 bird event. So you've got 9 more times and 18 more traps that you got to figure out. There's lots of 4 birds, 2 pair, 4 bird stations. You go in there and miss one on the first pair and figure it out. You're on pace for 75%,
Right.
So
I don't know that a lot of people ran a whole lot of stations. That's for sure. I mean, there's some, but not a whole lot.
Oh, no. I mean, I shot with Zach Keenbaum, Wendell Cherry, Trevor Jensen. I would say that the average was probably, if you took the average of our squad, so 4 guys, they can all are very experienced shooters. I would say that our squad averaged running maybe 4 stations per person, out of 13 stands. So that's not a lot. You know,
What'd you think about the other courses, the prelim, super sporting, and
I thought they were awesome. I mean, the targets were really good on all those events. They're challenging. I mean, I shot the 5 stand on Wednesday and shot a 92, and I was like, nobody's going to shoot 95, and I was right. I think 94 won it. They're all challenging. I mean, the FITAS challenging, the prelim was challenging, the Welcome 100. I mean, I thought that was the easiest. I shot a 97. Derek Mine shot a 98, but you could jump after us. The scores went down to 93 or 4. So they were good. They were hard. I mean, if you came there and, if you came to that tournament and you're not prepared of seeing some of that, and some of the people that are less experienced, they obviously can't, by definition of experience, some of those people are not going to be prepared for that. It's not and for some of the people, it's not a matter of practice. It's a matter of experience. Even if they're out practicing, they're not at the experience level that's required for some of those targets. So you have to keep that in consideration as a shooter, not to be too upset with yourself. But if you came to that tournament and, you like to hit birds and feel good, you missed a lot of birds. And, how you handle that is ultimately would be decided, if you had a good day or not, right?
Yeah.
If you missed birds and you learned something and you saw challenging shots, then you had a great time. If you missed something and, you couldn't kind of quite handle with the relentless targets, then, could hurt your feelings a little bit. I mean, I thought all the targets, all the side events, all of the prelims, the 5 stands, the super sports, all really good, all really fair. I thought the 694 and the A400, good challenging courses. The DT11, probably a little bit too hard. That's just my opinion. Not from the perspective of me, because obviously I don't care how hard it is. I got to shoot against the next guy, and if I have the high score with a 70% or a 90%, it doesn't really matter to me. But probably a hair too hard on the DT11 for the masses, for the group as a whole. But it is what it is. They all shoot at the same birds. And, hats off to the club for not being afraid to throw some challenging targets. I mean, I'm sure there's a handful of, people that were griping and moaning about it, but it is what it is. That's their decision. They host the tournament, and, it was one course out of all of them that I would say that was a hair too hard in my opinion. But, change a couple stations on that course, 2-3 stations on that course, changes the results big time. Gets people, station that they got a 0 on, if it was easier, and they got a 6 out of 6. Do that twice on that course as a target setter, and the scores are a lot different.
What do you say to the C and D and B class shooters that just felt like they got beat up?
I mean, look, the reality is there's a percentage of those birds if you're at that experience level that you're just simply not ready for, so you are ultimately being tested on how well can you handle what you're not ready for relative to other people. That's, it's basically, it's like taking a really difficult test in college. There's a curve. Not everybody's going to fail. Okay. So, you have to think of it like a curve. Okay. Like grading with a curve. I have a lady who got second place in D class. She's been working really hard on her shooting. She shot like a 132 or something, which she got second place. She hit 65% of the birds. So she was tickled to death, right? She had, and it was a challenge, for everybody. And she happened to, hit the second most number of targets in D class. So somebody won, right? If you're in D or C or wherever you are, that's the only thing that I think you can, if you're beat up over it a little bit, it is a competition. You're competing against, someone for a relative score. The number of targets that you hit, try to let that go. But people have more fun when they hit targets. That's not undeniable, and that'd be a little bit why I'd say the DT was a little bit over over the top. But it is what it is, and everybody shot and somebody hit the most. So, and that's the same in whatever class you're in.
How do you mentally deal with targets on a course that doesn't let up like that?
It's just work really hard, man. You're planning every station. You're paying a lot of attention. You're trying to calculate, if I kill this bird here, what's this one look like? You know, I just, I literally, uh, I literally, and I say this all the time, but I think it's even more so the case out there. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to hit everyone I can, and we're going to see what's going to happen. Zach was one of my squad mates. Zach Greenbaum was one of my squad mates, and when it was all done, he literally said, he said, man, you just never gave up. You just kind of like everybody else, kind of like you could see that they're like rattled a moment here or there. He's like, you just never gave up. You just kept doing the same thing regardless of the resistance that you come against, right? I missed two birds in the first two stands the first day on not difficult stands. My whole squad was straight. I just went out there and hit every one that I could every time and step into each cage basically like it's a new station and, try my best. I mean, I'd never been so happy in my life to get a 5 out of 6 on, a number of stations, so it's tough, and the difficulty, is definitely there's some shots and some pairs there that some people are simply not experienced enough to pull off. So, don't beat yourself up over it.
I heard of some people just not even shooting at one and just double tapping the easier one.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Cruz, he's a U.S. Open champion, 2-time national champion. He went for a 3 out of 6 on one station. He just shot at the one twice because people on his squad, were hitting 2 out of 6 and 3 out of 6 and maybe a 4 and maybe a 1 out of 6. So, he just basically said, I'm going to try to kill that one every time. Yeah. And he didn't. He's still Dutched a pair, killed 2 out of 6. So that's how hard they are, right?
Oh, yeah. When dropping as many targets as everyone did, when you're at a level like you, Zach, Corey, what runs through your mind? Do you think, what are these other people dropping as many as I am? Am I just off? I mean, what goes through your mind?
I mean, I have a pretty good judge of the difficulty level. I feel like I'm pretty good judge of difficulty level, so I kind of know, I can walk up and know, look, there's not going to be hardly anyone run this, 5 out of 6 is good, so that helps you keep your mind in the game, in the sense that, there's plenty of stations out there that if you hit a 4 out of 6 or a 5 out of 6, it was a good score. So if you walk out of there and you're confident and happy with that, it helps you into the next station. If you don't realize the difficulty level, then you get even more beat up. So I think that last year I won the U.S. Open with a 197. And I missed one of those birds on my second to last station, so in the first 188 birds at the U.S. Open last year, I only missed two birds. I missed 2 birds in the first 10 this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just different, right? But at the end of the day, I think the mindset that people have to remember, regardless what class they're in, regardless what experience level they are, and look, if you're beat up by the targets and upset you a little bit, I can totally see why. But you're there to hit everyone that you can. So as long as you do something that gets in the way of you hitting everyone that you can, then you didn't reach your potential. I mean, so that's the simple statement, right? I don't care if you're Zachary Kienbaum or Corey Cruz or Wendell Cherry or, Joe Blow in D class that's at his first U.S. Open and, has, completely shocked by what he's seeing here. You're still there to hit everyone that you can. And if you're going to judge yourself as a competitor, forget what you think about the targets. Forget what you think the target setter should have done. You're not there actually to critique the target setter and make comments about what they should or shouldn't do or what level of difficulty you think is appropriate. You're there to hit every bird that you can as a competitor. So as long as you're doing something that takes you away from that, then you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
You mentioned earlier that it don't matter how much practice you have, it's the experience that was going to make you hit these birds.
Yeah, so I always, and people who take lessons from me, et cetera, I'm a firm believer in you have to hit everything you're supposed to hit, and that would still hold true here, right? Because the harder these birds are, if you gave away stuff that you're able to hit, you're really in trouble. Okay, so I'm a firm believer, and in my own practice, I kind of practice to a level of like where I'm confident, and I don't push my practice a whole lot past that. Like I'm not shooting 60-yard birds in practice, etc., because I want to leave my practice day kind of hitting everything. Um, so you get experience on these birds through time and seeing them and scenarios, but it would have been very difficult to prepare for like this level of difficulty. Even if you said, hey, I know it's going to be tough. I knew they were going to throw us some really fast stuff. I knew they'd throw us a couple good ripping crossers at 40 yards, like that pair of green birds on the DT11. I practiced some stuff like that, but the scenario of some of these pairs you can't really prepare yourself for in a practice day or a month anyway. It's kind of a culmination of a period of time and experience, and that's where some of the newer and lower class shooters really unfortunately couldn't have even prepared themselves if they wanted to.
Let me ask you this question right here, because it came up a few times during this tournament, and it was from lower class shooters. They said, I have no idea where I'm at. Kind of explain, if you get the feeling that you have no clue where you're at, being someone that's newer to the sport, what do you do to fix it?
Yeah, I mean, the problem on a lot of these targets for most people is they're looking to change their lead, right? Like, I got to give it more, I got to leave it less. And obviously there's a lot of big far birds, and some took a lot of lead, but there's a lot of big far slow birds. Okay, I'd say there was more far slow birds than there were far fast birds. Most of the stuff that was really fast was quartering away. A lot of trap and trap teal and stuff like that. The really fast birds, a couple big crossers like the Bat 2 off the tower, et cetera, over there on the A400. But a lot of the really far birds, that were out there were not that fast, okay? Or they got to the point in the flight where they weren't fast any longer. So what happens on that stuff is it's not necessarily the lead, it's the gun speed and the gun speed correlation with the bird, which you're not going to fix in the middle of a tournament, unfortunately. Okay, so that comes back to fundamentals and mechanics of matching the gun speed and the bird speed. If your gun speed and the bird speed are off and the bird's 60 yards away, your sight picture is not accurate. Even if you think it takes this much lead, it looks like 3 inches in front to me, or 3 foot in front to the next guy, or 6 foot, or whatever. So when your gun is moving at a different rate than the bird, and the bird is 60 yards away, what you see as a sight picture is not accurate if your gun speed's out of sync with the bird. So that's where people could have the right lead, miss it. When we talk about lead, obviously we're trying to watch the clay, but you got to know where to put the gun on these targets. And if you're an inexperienced shooter, there's some of these shots you don't have any idea where to put the gun, and you could have a problem with your gun speed. So you can get in a lot of trouble. Back to your generic question, look, a lot of these far birds, fast birds, people shot behind them, yes. But your buddy could go, give it more, and you still not hit it. And you feel like, well, I can't be behind it now. Okay. And the answer is you're probably not, but you probably were close to where you wanted to be the one time, but your gun's out of sync. So your pattern doesn't end up where you think it is. When we say gun speed, for people that aren't understanding what that means is, from the time your brain says, all right, fire, think of what has to happen. Your finger has to move. Your brain's got to say fire. That's what you see. When your brain says now, that's your sight picture. Okay. So your finger's got to move. Your brain's got to send a signal to your finger. Your finger's got to move. It's got to pull the trigger. The trigger's got to release. It's got to hit the hammer, light the shell. You have an explosion. The shot's got to travel down the end of your barrel and clear the choke. That's not instantaneous, right?
Right.
From that sight. So if your gun speed is moving at a different rate than the bird, what your brain saw when you said now is not where the actual shot went.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
There's more problem there at the U.S. Open for shooters in that regard than there is the lead being wrong, especially if you're in AA or master and you go, I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn out there. What the hell happened? It's not lead. It's your gun speed correlation with the bird speed. And the birds happen to just that weekend be consistently far enough that your error showed up. Okay. So if you said, well, I normally get in the 80s or even a 90, but I shot 65. Your gun speed's out of sync with the bird more than you realize it is, and it just showed up and bit you in the ass that weekend because of the when you add distance, your air gets bigger. The example I always give with that, it's like, if somebody, it's like the same as in any sport, right? Why do they make less 50-yard field goals than they do 35? Because the kicker's got the same air at 35, but at 50 it shows up and goes outside the post. Same thing with a golfer, putting, etc. It's all the same. Your air gets bigger, and the birds were all at a distance where your air is big enough to matter.
There's one thing at the U.S. Open that I haven't experienced yet that's been as big, was the make or break shoot off. Now, I know you have a big one up there at your place, but I was very impressed at the amount of people that tried to get in, that did get in, and the amount of people that watched. That was amazing.
Yeah, there was a good crowd. There was a lot of guys that tried and didn't make it in. So it was, it's definitely good for the sport and getting people watching, and doesn't hurt to have camaraderie, right?
Speaking of the make or break shoot off, everyone knows Brandon Powell came back to the sport after being away, it seems, for 4 or 5 years or so. A lot of the guys that have been around the sport for a while know exactly who he is, and some of the newer shooters may not. Well, he won the make or break shoot off, and he took HOA of the 2022 U.S. Open.
Yeah, he's a hell of a competitor, both, from a, mentally, as from a competition standpoint, and technically he's pretty sound. And, he's been gone for 4 or 5 years, but I'm not surprised. A lot of people probably don't know the guy, or if they do know the guy, are surprised he was at the top. I'm not surprised. I think he's one of the very best from a competition standpoint, and he's just a very good competitor. He's, I kind of say he's wired for it. When the pressure's on, he shoots well. Congrats to him. Historically, he's had a little rough patch historically and gotten himself in some trouble and been fairly controversial, but he's back, and hopefully he sticks around and shoots, because having competition never hurts, and keeps himself clean and keeps his head straight. And I wish him all the best. When he was 14, 15 years old, I gave him lessons, and I've known him for a long time. So he's got a lot of years ahead of him to shoot, and I hope that he does what he's supposed to do and shoots well. Maybe you should get him on, see what he was doing. I'm sure he shot a little bit of practice here and there to keep his hand in it, but get him on the show. See if we can learn something. See if there's something that you can learn. I'm sure you'll have some good questions for him, and you can ask about his what he's been doing over the last 5 years and what he plans to do over the next 20. Right.
You released your book, had a book signing there at Beretta. How did that end up for you?
It went good. It was pretty successful. We had a lot of people show up. We did it on Friday at 5:30 when I got done shooting, and we had a lot of people sign up. I think we signed over 200 books that Friday, and sold a few more throughout the weekend. So it was good. The book's available now online. Have some clubs that are carrying it. Actually got some clubs there in the Southeast that have just near you that just signed up to carry it in their pro shop. Backwoods is going to carry some. The Meadows, Rocky Creek, South Carolina. So it's good. You can get it online. You can get it from some clubs. They'll be carrying it in the Dallas Beretta Gallery, the New York Beretta Gallery. But it was definitely an accomplishment. I'm proud of it. I'm not a salesman, but I think if you're listening to this podcast and you don't have this book, and you devote time to the game and you study the game, that it's an invaluable resource. There's some good stuff in there. It's my lifetime of things about how to shoot and shooting and technical, but then how to play the game and how to think and how to reevaluate your game, etc. It's, cheaper than a case of shells, and you can learn a hell of a lot more with that book than you can a case of shells. I can guarantee you that.
I wonder if people that bought it at the U.S. Open were reading it, riding around, shooting the courses.
Yeah, we set it up to where, kind of a coffee table book that you could go back and look at a chapter a year later and say, I got to see if I got something I can work on there. So definitely proud of it. It was a success. Beretta helped me launch that and kind of get it going there at the U.S. Open. And it's going to be around and a resource about shooting, for longer than I'm around. So some of the things in the book are, they're never going to change. So that documenting some stuff there is, neat to me, and proud to have done it.
Yeah, I've read it, and it's, for sporting clays, is the best one that I've read for sure. And the stories is what makes it good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they're real, right?
Yeah.
There's a story in there about Corey Cruz losing the national championship on the last stand, and stuff like that. That's the reality, and that's what makes guys like me and him, good shooters, is from all of our, lifetime of experiences. And if you can shorten your learning curve a little bit in that book, or learn a better way how to think or put things in perspective, then, you should have it. I've got some instructors that are other guys throughout the country that I've given the book to, and they're like, man, this is awesome. I'm going to use this, to help myself with some curriculum, or tell some of my shooters, if I give them their first lesson, you need to get this book and get yourself familiarized with all this stuff, so you can even know what you don't know, or ask the right question, type of thing. So I think it's going to be a good resource for a lot of people.
Well, I appreciate your time. It's always good to have you on and listen to what you got to say, and we'll catch you at the next one.
Very good. Thanks, Justin.